Well, thanks, Brian, for that extraordinary, thought-provoking account. We'll be asking, I think, both Peter and Brian at the beginning of the questions which will follow to, maybe just in a sentence, to go back to the question which we posed: where is British art? And you've got 20 minutes or so to prepare your single sentence answers, and while you do that, Geoff Molyneux from Liverpool, a graduate of Manchester and Liverpool Polytechnic, will give the third talk in this group. Geoff, thanks very much. Make sure you answer. Thank you. Okay, this is very much a presentation from a personal, experiential perspective. I've loosely titled it a regional perspective. I don't represent an institution. I'm not an academic, despite having taught for 30 years in art education. I am first and foremost a practitioner. The presentation is accompanied by slides from Rogue Artist Studios in Manchester. If for no other reason, then it's the only opportunity the vast majority of us will have of showing any work at Tate Britain in any form. It's not all the artists that are in the studios, it's just those artists that chose to put images on the studio website. Those that haven't, I've assumed that they don't want their images in the public domain, so I've not borrowed them. I've been based in and around the cities of Liverpool and Manchester for over 30 years. My formal art education was at Liverpool School of Art, then part of Liverpool Polytechnic, now Liverpool John Moores University. Before completing my degree in fine art, I had the good fortune to be one of the founder members of the Bridewell Studios in Liverpool. Shortly after graduation, I began to teach at a local FE college, then called Mabel Fletcher Technical College. They don't name them like that anymore. This was one of 9 FE colleges in the city that eventually got amalgamated into one very large institution. When I left it, it was called Liverpool Community College. It had many other titles in between. I taught in Liverpool for 30 years. The last 10 years delivering higher education in a further education institute. The last 15 years I've been at Rogue Artist Studios in Manchester, and I'll talk a little bit about that more later. My first studio was the Bridewell Studios. This is based at a former police station in Liverpool, and then founded by Dave Clapham, who was a lecturer at Liverpool Polytechnic and also an independent filmmaker. The organisation was based on the Acme Art Space model in London, and it has artist studios, some living accommodation. Maurice Cockrell used to live there actually, and he's now Keeper of Art at the Royal Academy. And the Bridewell developed some very interesting initiatives over the first few years. This included an artist residency programme funded by Granada Studios. I think we got some money from the Arts Council as well. The first resident artist there was Ian McKeever, who, I don't suppose many people know this, he used to play football for Hull City. He's now done quite well for himself away from the football ground. The second resident artist was Anish Kapoor. As far as I'm aware, he didn't play football very much, but he's being very well represented at the Olympic Games nevertheless. This was in the 1980s when Liverpool had 3 galleries. The Walker Art Gallery, part of National Museums Merseyside and home of the John Moores Painting Prize, the Blue Coat Art Centre and the Oak Knife Photography Gallery. Now there is Tate Liverpool, FACT, the Foundation for Art and Creative Technology, which incidentally grew out of Mersey Moviola, run by Eddie Berg from the Blue Coat Art Centre. We also have the Liverpool Biennial, that includes the New Contemporaries, the ongoing John Moores Painting Prize, and the Liverpool Independent. I've had to edit this next bit actually, and many new organisations have appeared in the city, including 2 bills On the waterfront, the new Liverpool Museum and the new Open Eye Gallery, and I was going to say the arrival of Novas Centre for Urban Culture. I got an email yesterday to say they're closing. But we've still got Metal Culture who came up, and they're based at Edge Hill Railway Station. We've seen a number of galleries come and go, including the A Foundation, which is now closed, and Kerry Hand Gallery, which is still there, but will be moving to new premises in London. The Bridewell Studio is still in operation, but there are now at least 6 more studio groups in the city, each with 12 plus members, including Royal Standard, Arena, Elevator. I'm a bit worried about the last 2 because they are housed in the Novas building, so I'll have to give you an update on what's happening to them now that Novas is closing. It's a similar story in Manchester, you know, with its International Arts Festival now, the Asian Triennial, and a fair number of the cultural institutions benefiting from input of government funding. Another half-dozen studio groups have been established in the last 20 years, among them Rogue Artist Studios, where I'm now based. This was founded in 1995, literally from the embers of another studio after an arson attack. This studio was called Cuba, Cultural Utilities Building, Ancoats. Originally with less than 20 members, it now has over 90, occupying 3 floors of a textile mill in the city centre, very close to Manchester Piccadilly Station. You saw it on the first slide. It's self-funding, solely through the rent generated by its members. There's no regular funding from the Arts Council, although we did get some money from them when we took over the 4th floor and established a project space. And this project space has been quite important. It's curated, for want of a better word, by elected studio members who are unpaid for periods of about 12 months at a time. It's been used for exchange programmes with other groups from Manchester, Liverpool, Sheffield and Birmingham, and also organisations like the Chinese Art Centre. Its function isn't just that of a gallery. It's used by rogue artists to explore new projects not possible in their own studio space, and often for collaborative practice and performance and live art and other experimental works. One of the studio members, Nagus Quaife, who curated the project space, has now established his own gallery in Rogue. This gallery is called Malgrus Nordet, or Nordet, from the Zola novel The Masterpiece. Again, this is entirely self-funded, so he has sole curatorial control. The studio itself is administered on a day-to-day basis by 2 studio members who get free studio space. They have responsibility for staying on top of the studio finances, accounts, organising required insurance cover, liaising with the landlord, his agents, studio maintenance, health and safety, and so on. As we have 3 floors of the building now, we took over another floor earlier this year. This was completely self-financed with no Arts Council funding. To be fair, we didn't ask for any funding. We now have studio reps on each floor who get a small reduction of cost towards the rent for their time at meetings. Policy and other decisions are taken by a steering group, unpaid, meeting every couple of months or so when required. There's a selection committee, also unpaid, for applicants for space when studios become vacant. It's a kind of broader question here is, what on earth are we all doing here as practitioners in Manchester when you consider there isn't a great art market in the Northwest? I suppose this is a challenge for those looking towards the market, but not for those who feel that it gives them the freedom to work from market pressures. Maybe it's the geographic location that's important. I want to talk a bit about this in the Northwest. I wasn't born or brought up in either Liverpool or Manchester, and I've never really got the absolute loyalty to either. I understand the shared histories, the trade, industrial revolution, the transport, cultural diversity, and I understand the pride and the rivalry. Ask somebody from Manchester, which is England's 2nd city, and you may be surprised at the answer. Ask somebody from Liverpool what's England's 2nd city, and again you'll be surprised at the answer. There'll probably be the same answer. Which is England's 2nd city? London. I have no doubt that other regional cities may give the same answer to the same question. There's no denying that London is still very much the centre for the arts in Britain, but is this centralisation healthy and is it desirable? When I was a recent graduate, just about everybody wanted to go to London, at least have the London exhibition. It was the same as an art student. Many wanted to stay in London. The reputation and standing of the art schools was important, especially at postgraduate level. There are more galleries here and many more cultural institutions. The attraction of London is understandable. Financially now, though, it's a very difficult decision. Students can't afford to study. Many graduates can't afford to stay. And who knows what the impact of the rising tuition fees will have on the numbers of fine art graduates or applicants, and for that fact, nationally, not just London. The signs are really not good. Something else, though, has changed over the last couple of decades in art education. Most of the arts graduates in the 1980s were sent out with whatever piece of paper they were awarded, having gained some studio craft and academic skills, some art historical and awareness, and if you were lucky, a graduation exhibition catalogue. Now there's much more emphasis on professional practice. Graduates are much more savvy about organising exhibitions and projects outside of an educational institution. They should know how to go out, seek out and negotiate a venue. They should know how important publicity and marketing is, and they should know how to approach possible funding organisations. When I was teaching, I used to get my students to fill in an Arts Council application form based on the project realisation of a project in a public place and send this to me. If only somebody had done that for me when I was a student, it would have made my arts application forms a lot easier to do. I agreed to do this from an experiential point of view as an artist that lived and worked in the Northwest. Having said that, I didn't want to appear as the embittered northerner. Quite the reverse. I've been fortunate to maintain a studio practice since graduating, and this practice has taken me to many other countries outside of the UK. The majorities of these opportunities, apart from the occasional successful residency application and the odd invitational, came out of artist-led initiatives. And two of these that deserve a mention are 8 Days of the Week and Coast International Artist Workshops, both founded in Liverpool. There are many more I could have mentioned, more in Manchester. The first, 8 Days of the Week, originated by the critic Jürgen Kisters and the artist Georg Gartz, both from Cologne, together with Brian Biggs, the director of the Blue Coat Art Centre, and Pete Clark, an artist and lecturer based in Liverpool. Had its first show was in Cologne in 1998. And since this event, there have been over 120 exchanges between artists in Liverpool and Cologne, with many crossovers in other cities. This has been done on a shoestring budget, with extremely careful logistical planning. A van or car with artworks rarely returned empty from either Liverpool or Cologne. And the generosity of their artists and the friends in both cities offering accommodation to visitors either side of the channel kept costs down to a minimum and also extended cultural exchange. The second, Coast International Workshops, formerly Funiad, was based on the Triangle Gasworks model of international artist exchange programs and set up by Lynn Holland, an artist and lecturer based in Liverpool, with help and advice from Robert Loader of the Gasworks organisation and with the support of Liverpool Hope University. The first two residents, inviting 12 non-British based artists to live and work alongside 12 British artists for a period of 2 weeks, was based on the west coast of Barmouth in 1999 and 2001. The third at the former A Foundation building in Liverpool in 2007. The Liverpool event also gave the opportunity for a number of the invited artists to work with local schools, colleges and organisations, just extending their experience, extending their stay, giving them more money basically as well. These programmes, and I could have mentioned many others, initiated and realised by the enthusiasm, dedication and drive, have been rewarding and challenging to all those who participated, either as members of the organisation steering groups or as invited artists. And again, I want to emphasise, these are led by artists. As I said earlier, we have about 90 artists in Rogue, and I wanted to try and get some feedback from other artists in the studio to represent a range of disciplines and generations. I managed to persuade over 40 members, actually it's probably nearer 50 because I was interviewing as I was writing this, to take part in a very short person-to-person question-answer session relating to the topics being discussed by this panel. The artists' range at Rogue was from 23 to 60. That's my 15-minute sign, by the way. That's slide coming to a halt. Many are recent graduates, some MA and PhD students, many involved in art education, other with jobs completely unrelated to their practice. The vast majority had decided to pursue a career in Manchester for two main reasons. Firstly, the vibrant arts scene and cultural scene. Many had come to the city to study or work here as a first choice. Second, for financial reasons. It's cheaper to live in Manchester than many other places. Studio space is still inexpensive, at least half the rent one would expect to pay in London. General living costs are less, and almost all expressed the quality of life they enjoyed. 4 artists in particular I talked to had moved from London to Manchester. Geographical location was also cited as being important. We're served with good road, rail, airport links, and one of my colleagues said, I like Manchester, you can get out of it easily. And it's as cheap to get to Paris and Cologne as it is for us to get to London in many cases. I asked if they considered themselves to be regional artists. This caused much debate, like what is a regional artist? Well over half of this considered regional artist a disparaging term and would reject any notion of regionalism. The remainder embraced this, recognising that this is where they lived, it's where they worked, it's the environment they engaged with, and it's what informed their practice. I asked if they considered themselves to be British artists. There was more discussion. The most common answer was, I guess so, or I suppose so, citing nationality and having been educated in English or Scottish art institutions. No one I spoke to was educated in Wales. I asked if they considered the work they produced could be seen as British art. This again caused a lot of debate. Almost all acknowledged the impact of having had a Western art education experience based around a European and American art, although many expressed more global influences and interests and ambitions. The last question I asked was how important the studio is to their practice. This was a pretty stupid question, really, because if it wasn't important, they wouldn't have a studio there anyway. But unsurprisingly, all saw the primary function of the studio as a place to make work, a place to think, and a place to engage with others. And being part of the studio group is important. The feeling of not working in isolation was crucial. I mentioned earlier that the draw to London was important for many artists, and I used to complain about the fact that if you wanted to do anything, you were expected to go to London, so much that my colleagues suggested I should go. They were trying to get rid of me, actually. I chose not to. I don't know that it was a lack of ambition, a fear of failure. Perhaps I was just too comfortable. More likely it was sheer bloody mindedness. Whatever reason, like many others, I chose to stay in the Northwest. I know it's not easy here. Studio rent is double anywhere else. It takes an age to get anywhere. You know, space is difficult to find, but it's still the cultural hub. You've got fantastic galleries, museums, arts organisations, and without doubt it's still the main art market. And it's tough, but if you don't like it, you can always move. Thank you.